You might have heard the recent rumours about Mykhailo Mudryk allegedly quitting football to become a professional sprinter. And whilst this may not be completely true, it begs the question, could footballers actually compete in other sports? There's no doubt that certain players can move fast. Some have incredible strength, and pretty much all of them have ridiculous cardio. But could this ever translate to Kylian Mbappe winning the 100-metre Olympic sprint? He might be the fastest footballer on the planet, but fastest human? That's a whole other question. We've seen multi-sport athletes before. Michael Jordan competed in both the NBA and the MLB. So did Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, the list goes on. But when I looked up footballers to play another sport professionally, I couldn't really find much. And this surprised me. Football's a sport of so many talents. It's hard to imagine there's not a single player that could play rugby or even compete at the Olympics. So I tested this theory myself. Unfortunately, we don't have the resources to pit Van der Ven against Noah Lyles on a track and settle the argument once and for all. But we do have data on footballers' top speeds, highest jumps and strongest lifts. And using our research, we can determine if footballers can really be considered elite athletes, or if they were always destined to only play football. But the answers we found turned out to be far from what anyone would have expected. But before we even think about footballers competing in the Olympics, we need to know what makes them athletic to begin with. And football has a really wide range of shapes and sizes. In the Prem last season, the difference between the tallest player, Dan Burn at 6'7", and the smallest player, Tariq Lamptey at 5'4", was nearly 1.5 feet, which makes it pretty funny that they play in the same position. So let's take two completely opposing players and see what athletic traits they do and don't share. Probably the biggest athletic freak in the Prem right now is Erling Haaland, 6'4", 88 kilograms, and notorious for outmuscling and outpacing every defender he's ever played against. But if you look at his family, this shouldn't come as a surprise. Erling's dad was a pro footballer himself, and his mum was a former Norwegian heptathlon champion. It's like Haaland was woven from the perfect strands of athletic descent. Now let's take someone like Jorginho, only 5'9", 65 kilograms, and often regarded as one of the slowest players in Premier League history. He doesn't seem to be strong on the ball or have any power driving forward. Athletically, he's pretty below average, and he doesn't really come close to matching up with Haaland in any way, but he still competed at the highest level, as one of the best players in the league, and both players received a top 3 finish in the Ballon d'Or in the last decade. So how is this possible? Well, Jorginho is undoubtedly fitter than Haaland. As a midfielder, he has to cover much more ground than a striker. In fact, Jorginho covered 86.6 kilometers in just 7 games at the 2020 Euros, more than any other player. So while he might not threaten the high jump record, he might be more suited to a half marathon, for example. There's no preset physical archetype in football, a fact I'm constantly reminded of when I play on the weekend, against all different shapes and sizes. But we already knew this, and we're not looking for players to use their brains instead of their bodies here. We want to find the elite of the elite, the players in peak physical condition. And whilst this can come in different forms of athleticism, one thing a lot of world-class footballers have in common is that they're all ridiculously fast. Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Bale, Salah. Many of the greatest players of the modern era were not only exceptionally talented, they were rapid. But they're not the fastest players we've ever seen. After just a couple of game weeks in the Prem this season, the top 5 sprint speeds were as follows: Elanga, Minter, Dan James, Mbermo, and Wolves' Chachua topping the list with 37.3 kilometers an hour. It sounds fast, and it is, but I can't quite picture how fast it is. Well, it's enough to put him 3rd in all-time Premier League top speeds. Mickey van der Ven holds the 5th and 4th top speeds at around 37 kilometers an hour. In 2nd is Kyle Walker, clocking an impressive 37.31 kilometers an hour in his younger days. And in 1st is Van der Ven yet again, recording the fastest top speed in league history at 37.38 kilometers per hour. In theory, top in-game speed is a funny one, because Van der Ven doesn't look particularly fast, and his acceleration might not be that impressive. In fact, the 10th fastest speed on the list is actually held by Szoboszlai, and he's definitely not known for his pace. There is one player, however, that is, who seems to have a ridiculous acceleration and top speed, and that's Kylian Mbappe. Whilst unofficial, Mbappe has a top game speed of 38 kilometers an hour, making him the fastest player in the world right now. And all you need to do is watch him to see how quick his first step and acceleration is. These are the exact traits you need to compete in the 100 meters. So how would Mbappe compare to the greatest sprinter of all time? We all know that Usain Bolt ran 100 meters in a world record time of 9.58 seconds, but could Mbappe ever come close? Well, the Jamaican's top speed was actually 44.72 kilometers an hour. Yeah, a whole 6 kilometers an hour faster than Mbappe's top speed. And if you don't think that's a big difference, trust me, it is. Looking at a model of Bolt's speed over time during a 100-meter sprint, we can see that he maintains his speed for most of the race. So what does this mean for Mbappe? Is he slow? A study by the BBC estimated that using Mbappe's top speed, he should be able to run a 10.9 second 100 meters, a whole 1.3 seconds slower than Bolt, which is years in sprinting terms. I knew that Mbappe was never going to rival Bolt in a flat-out sprint, but 10.9 seconds for someone that looks like the Flash on the football pitch. To be fair to Mbappe, he's not trying to sprint 100 meters as fast as physically possible. Also, he's running on a grass pitch, wearing baggier clothes, and has a million other factors to worry about. But if he was actually running with the sole purpose of a low time, in the right conditions, I'm sure he could get down to about 10.5, but that's still far from the Olympic level. All this got me thinking, I know Mbappe is one of the fastest players in the world right now, but surely a footballer out there has ran 100 meters with an official time, so we don't need to speculate. Former Liverpool striker and Ballon d'Or winner Michael Owen once claimed that he ran 100 meters in 10.8 seconds, when he was just 14. He was a speedster in his younger days, but this is hard to believe with no proof or an official record. Someone who does have an official time, however, is Marvell Wynne. You might be thinking, who the hell is that? And if you're lucky enough to be too young to remember his iconic FIFA 13 card with 96 pace, then I envy you. But Wynne's American, and he ran track in college, and he had a blistering 10.39 second 100 meters when he was a senior. This is starting to border on a professional level, but Wynne might be the anomaly, and he wasn't exactly a world-class footballer either. Unfortunately, there's pretty limited data on what footballers can physically achieve. In the NBA and NFL, they have a combine every year, where all the draft prospects are tested on different athletic feats, like a 40-yard dash or a vertical leap. Just imagine how fun it would be to watch this across the top European leagues, seeing all the Premier League wingers race each other, or all the centre-backs compete in a bench press challenge. It would build so much hype around the pre-season, and I'm sure the players would love the competitiveness just before the season started. It's actually pretty surprising that something like this has never been done before. Well, not in the Premier League era at least. I guess physicality isn't as important in football as it is in American sports, but still. Football's connection with player athleticism feels very limited, even in the modern day with all the access to state-of-the-art technology. Once upon a time, before the Premier League existed, some of the fastest players in England were tested against each other in the 100-metre sprint. Each club from the 92 could nominate a player to compete in the 100-metre trials, with the final being at Wembley. The winner was actually John Williams, nicknamed the Flying Postman, which came as a huge surprise to me as he used to coach me and my friends football when we were younger. Some crossover. He passed the line with a time of 11.49 seconds and took home 10 grand. Not bad, but the Olympic winner that year ran a sub 10, leaving the fastest footballer in England still 1.5 seconds off the mark. But just imagine how fun this would be if they did it today. The closest we've come in the modern era was in 2011, when a documentary was made to see if Cristiano Ronaldo could match up against a Spanish professional sprinter. Ángel David Rodriguez was once the Spanish 100-metre champion and ran a personal best of 10.23 seconds. The first event was a 25-metre race, to test acceleration over a short distance. Rodriguez went first and ran a 3.31, and Ronaldo followed with a 3.61, which is quite a bit slower. The next event again tested speed over a short distance, but this time slaloms were added to test their change of direction as well as acceleration. This time, the results were much different, with Ronaldo beating Rodriguez with a 6.35, much quicker than the Spaniard's 6.86. And this shows why footballers may be more athletic and competitive than I originally gave them credit for. Rodriguez is a sprinter. He always has been and he always will be. And his training consists of a small range of exercises that all have the sole purpose of running 100 meters as fast as physically possible, taking nothing away from sprinters. But their sport is fairly one-dimensional. Footballers like Ronaldo will rarely train at their top speed. They obviously work on their pace, but only as much as their endurance, their strength, their ball control, their finishing, their recovery. The list goes on. There's no doubt that they're sporting athletes with the same talent that Olympic sprinters have, and if they chose to pursue sprinting and trained it their whole life, I'm sure they could be just as successful. Look at Ronaldo, for example. He managed to outpace a professional sprinter in a sprinting drill just because it deviated slightly from a straight line dash. And his freakish natural talent doesn't stop there. We've all seen the clips of Ronaldo flying through the air to meet the ball, some with his head, some with his foot, and score some of the most physics-defying goals we've ever seen. According to the data, Ronaldo's highest ever vertical leap was against his old club, Manchester United, in the Champions League back in 2013. His jump took him over 2.93 meters into the air, and even at the dizzy heights, he managed to convert the cross into a goal. At 6'2", that gives Ronaldo an unofficial vertical of 41.7 inches. That number might not mean a lot to you, but trust me, it's alien. The kings of the vertical leap are NBA players, as it's a fundamental part of their sport to be able to fly over the rim for many different purposes. The average vertical for a professional basketball player is roughly 29 inches, nearly a whole foot below Ronaldo's, not to mention he did this on a grass pitch during a game. But if we compared this to the best jumpers in the world, again, there's quite a gap. The highest official vertical in the NBA is 49 inches, and the highest jump of all time is 51, so not quite Olympic level just yet, Cristiano. And this brings us to a very important point. Whilst footballers may be very good at a lot of different things, they don't seem to be elite in one specific category, not compared to the best in the world anyway. We love to entertain the idea, but you probably could have guessed at the start of the video that Mbappe would not be able to compete in the 100 meters, nor could Ronaldo claim a medal in the high jump. So could footballers compete at the Olympics? Well, yes and no. It's harsh to expect them to compete with athletes who train for one specific thing their whole lives. So on the surface, no, you couldn't take Adama Traore out the Premier League and put him in a bodybuilding competition. But at the same time, if you went back to his childhood and took a football away from him, who knows where he'd be in the athletic world. But there is one event that footballers might be able to compete in, even right now, and it's the decathlon, a 10-event competition that combines technique, power and cardio. It's almost perfectly set up for a footballer. 100 meters, long jump, high jump, shot put, 400 meters, 110 meter hurdles, discus throw, pole vault, javelin, and the 1500 meters. Lots of different types of running, upper body strength, lower body strength and conditioning. They'd have to get used to the tricky technique you need to pole vault or javelin, but a modern day footballer's ability to adapt and use their coordination is second to none, and there's more crossovers than you might think. We can thank Rory Delap for the amount of long throws we're seeing at the moment, but the whole reason he was so good at them was because he was a county javelin thrower before he put on the boots. The highest 100 meter speed in the decathlon world record was 10.55 seconds, a time I'm sure that Mbappe could compete with. The highest jump was 2.2 meters, a number I'm sure prime Ronaldo could have had a go at. This is all theoretical, and it's hard to find any real compelling proof to settle the argument. But it's fun to imagine someone like Jorginho lining up for the 1500 meters in an Olympic stadium, whilst Haaland tries to throw a shot put further than anyone else. Football is a sport that demands so much technical and athletic talent. I find it hard to believe that no one on the football pitch could transition to the track or to the gym. We might need to wait for someone to make history to really see how possible it is, but I'm optimistic.